What if the end of a dictator wasn't marked by a war, but by a rope? December 30th, 2006, the man who once ruled Iraq with an iron fist was executed by hanging. But how did one of the most feared men in the Middle East, a leader who survived wars, uprisings, and assassination attempts, end up standing in a room surrounded by enemies chanting against him? And more importantly, did his death bring justice or chaos? Let's rewind. Saddam Hussein rose to power in 1979, becoming Iraq's president after years of climbing through the ranks of the Ba'ath Party. From day one, he ruled with absolute authority. His regime was built on fear. Oppositions were imprisoned, tortured, or executed. Entire communities were punished for the actions of a few. Saddam didn't just control Iraq, he dominated it. He launched Iraq into devastating conflicts. The war with Iran in the 1980s that killed hundreds of thousands, and the invasion of Kuwait in 1990, which led to the Gulf War. At home, his regime carried out atrocities against his own people. One of the most infamous examples was the use of chemical weapons against the Kurdish town of Halabja in 1988, killing around 5,000 civilians in a single attack. But it wasn't just Kurds who suffered. In 1982, in the town of Dujail, after a failed assassination attempt, Saddam ordered a wave of brutal retribution. Hundreds were arrested, tortured, and 148 Shiite men and boys were executed. This massacre would later become central to his trial. By the early 2000s, Saddam was isolated but still in power. The world's eyes turned to him again when the United States accused Iraq of possessing weapons of mass destruction. In March 2003, US-led forces invaded Iraq. Within weeks, Saddam's government collapsed. His statues were toppled, his palaces looted, and the once untouchable president was suddenly a fugitive. For months, US forces hunted him. And here's the surprising twist. His capture wasn't a Hollywood-style showdown. On December 13, 2003, he was discovered hiding in a tiny underground bunker near his hometown of Tikrit. When pulled out, Saddam looked untidy, bearded, and tired, armed with a pistol he never fired. The image of him being examined like an ordinary prisoner shocked the world. For many Iraqis, this was the first time they saw their dictator stripped of power. After his capture, Saddam was handed over to the Iraqi Special Tribunal. His trial began in 2005, and it was broadcast across the country. Iraqis who had once whispered in fear of his name now watched him stand in a courtroom cage, uncooperative but powerless. He often interrupted proceedings, shouting at judges and claiming the trial was illegitimate, but the charges against him were overwhelming. In November 2006, Saddam Hussein was found guilty of crimes against humanity for the Dujail massacre. His sentence? Death by hanging. Now here's where the story takes an even darker turn. The execution was scheduled for December 30th, 2006, the first day of Eid al-Adha, one of Islam's holiest holidays. To many Muslims, the timing felt like an insult, as if politics had overridden religious respect. And then came the execution itself. It was meant to be controlled, a somber moment of justice. But reality was far messier. Guards in the execution chamber taunted Saddam, chanting the name of cleric Muqtada al-Sadr, one of his enemies. A leaked cell phone video showed the chaos, the shouting, the insults, the sectarian tension in the room. Moments later, the trapdoor opened, and the man who once ruled Iraq was gone. The footage spread rapidly, fueling outrage across the Middle East. For some, it was justice delivered. For others, it was a spectacle of revenge, an act that deepened divisions rather than healing them. And that's the central question. What did Saddam's death actually achieve? In theory, his execution was supposed to close a chapter, to give Iraq a chance to move forward. But instead, many argue it unleashed further instability. Sectarian violence exploded in the years after his death. Sunnis and Shiites clashed more violently than ever. The Iraqi government struggled to maintain control. And into that chaos stepped extremist groups, including the one that would eventually become ISIS. Looking back, some Iraqis say Saddam's execution was necessary. A tyrant had to face justice for his crimes. Others insist that while he was brutal, his regime at least maintained order, and removing him without a solid plan for Iraq's future was a catastrophic mistake. So here we are, nearly 2 decades later, still asking, was Saddam's hanging the moment Iraq found justice, or the spark that ignited even greater chaos? I want to hear your thoughts. Did the world gain anything from his execution, or did it just trade one nightmare for another? Drop your take in the comments below, and while you're here, hit that like button if you found this intriguing. Subscribe for more untold stories.